theyeshiva.net.
Okay, so we'll begin a new Maimer today, Be'ezer Hashem. At the end of Shlach, we have the story of the Mekosheish Eitzim. We're page 683. 83. The Maimer is focused on the last story of Parshas Shlach, the story of the Mekosheish Eitzim. You know, Parshas Shlach, you can put it as a very, very dramatic parsha. That's the story of the Meraglim, of the spies, which ends up in a colossal failure and catastrophe, and the Jews are now going to remain and wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Right afterwards comes the story of the Mapilim, which means the Jews who decided to go in anyway, to go up anyway, despite Moshe's instructions, because they wanted to go into the land, which didn't end up well. That was a very unsuccessful attempt. From there he goes into the mitzvah of Nesachim. Nesachim are the wine libations, the pouring of the wine on the altar that came with various offerings in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah. From there he goes into the mitzvah of Challah, to separate a part of the dough that you bake to the Kohen. Yeah. And from there he discusses afterwards the carbon chatos, a unique carbon for certain sins. And one always has to understand the connection, the thematic connection from the Meraglim to Nesachim, from Nesachim to Challah, Challah to carbon chatos. The last story, out of the blue comes a new story, that when the Jews were in the Midbar, they found Vayiyu b'nei Yisrael b'Midbar, Vayimtzu ish Mekosheish Eitzim b'yom HaShabbos. They saw a person, they found a person, an ish, a man, who was Mekosheish Eitzim. What's Mekosheish Eitzim? So usually, the way it's translated by many Mefarshim is, he was gathering wood, gathering sticks on the day of Shabbos. So they don't know what to do with him. This is a public desecration, a violation of Shabbos. Rashi says they warn him, etc. They bring him to Moshe. And Vayanichu b'mishmar, they put him in like a prison, custody. And this is where they learn, Hashem tells Moshe that the penalty for the desecration of Shabbos, if it's done willingly and of course with a whole complex procedure of witnesses and warnings, is stoning. And that's what happens. And then you have the mitzvah of tzitzis. Okay. This is just a story the way it's at the end of Parshas Shlach, and it finishes with tzitzis. So he starts off. No, that's going to be the focus here. The word Mekosheish is a very difficult word. What does it mean? And that's why in commentators you have diverse interpretations. And we'll soon see here what the Zohar says, which is completely from a different realm. Take a look. It's page 83 on the bottom, the second column on the bottom, Membeis column 2. You see Membeis, the second column, all the way on the bottom. This is a Maimer of the Balatanya of Tov Kuf Nun Vav, which means 1796. It says, Vayu b'nei Yisrael b'midbar vayimtzu ish Mekosheish Eitzim. O Pirish b'Zohar, says the Zohar, Reish Parsha Shlach, Kuf Nun Zayin Amid Aleph. The Zohar in this week's Parsha, Sheyesh Shnei Minei Eitzim, Eitz HaChaim ve'Eitz HaDas, V'hu Diyek Eizim Min Hoin Rav. The word Mekosheish, you do have in Shas many times, known as a Hekesh. Mekosheish from the word Hekesh. What does Hekesh mean? Hekesh literally is a juxtaposition, which means when you have two things that say together in the same pasuk or the same halacha, Chazal had a tradition that one of the ways of interpreting Torah is when two ideas say in the same pasuk or the same halacha, they can be compared to each other. Just to give one example, a famous one is in Kiddushin. This comes to mind, Avtes. How do we know that you could betroth a woman through a document? The answer is v'yatza v'hoisa. Makish havia liyitzia. Mayitzia b'shtar af havia b'shtar. The same pasuk the Torah speaks about divorce and marriage. V'yotza mi beisoi v'holcha v'hoisa li'ish acher. V'yotza means she leaves. V'hoisa is she enters into a new relationship. So we juxtapose the fact that they're together. We compare the two. It's called makish. Your makish means you compare, you equate one to the other. That the halachic principles that apply to one apply to the other, those issues that are relevant. For example, one divorces through a document that says clearly in the Torah, the cost of Lasefer Krisus, V'nasan biyada, right? V'shilcha mebeise v'yotza mebeise v'holcha v'hoisa li'ish acher. So the v'hoisa also can happen through a document. That's why the Mishnah says, ha'isha niknes b'shalish drachim b'kesef b'shtar u'b'biyah. One of the three methods of kiddushin, of betrothal in the beginning of Maseches Kiddushin is there is money, there is intimacy, and there is shtar, a document. The minig today is with money or something that's worth money, like a ring. Yeah. Just an example, that's the word hekesh. You compare, makish. So the Zohar HaKadosh says, Mekosheish comes from that word. Mekosheish Eitzim b'yom HaShabbos. He was comparing trees on Shabbos. What was he comparing? The Zohar says there's two types of trees. There's Eitz Chaim and there's Eitz Das. In the original Garden of Eden, where Adam and Chava were planted, were created, we know that there was the Eitz Chaim b'soich Hagan, there's the tree of life. There was also the Eitz Das, the tree of awareness of Tov and Ra. And Hashem said, Mikol Eitz Hagan, eat from everything besides that tree. When he eats from that tree, he's now afraid he's going to eat from the tree of life, and he sends him out of Gan Eden. Says the Zohar, generations later, there was a Jew on Shabbos comparing, Mekosheish Eitzim, comparing. He wants to know which one is greater. That's what the Zohar says. So it's obviously a very, curious and intriguing explanation in the Zohar. What does this mean? How does it come in here? What is even the explanation? Why is he comparing trees? Why is this a desecration of Shabbos? Etc. To understand this insight of the Zohar, what does it mean? Tzarich lahavin inyan ha'kedusha. One has to understand the inyan of kedusha, the concept of holiness. Sha'amru Razal, the Gemara says, Adam mekadosh es atzmei ma'at milmata, mekatchen noisei harbe milmaila. A person sanctifies himself a little bit down here, and they sanctify him abundantly from above. The Gemara says in Maseches Yuma, Daf Lamed Tes, Adam mekadosh es atzmei ma'at milmata. You sanctify yourself ma'at, a little bit below, and the result is that milmaila from above, they infuse you with a tremendous amount of kedusha as a result of your efforts down here, even though it's ma'at. The Gemara doesn't only mean the concept called hashras hashchina, the dwelling of the shchina. Shalza amru b'feidish. On this, it says clearly, they say clearly, the Chazal say clearly, that shchina shruya. There's an expression, the shchina, the divine presence dwells. Shamru kamay shamru razal, as Chazal say, shafilu echad, sheyoshev v'oisik b'Torah, shchina imay. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos in the beginning of chapter 3, right, that even one Jew who sits and learns Torah, certainly more than one Jew, but one Jew who sits and learns Torah, so shchina shruya imay. The Shekhinah dwells with him. So that's something called Hashras HaShekhinah, the Shekhinah dwells. Here, the Gemara's expression is in Yom Alametes, Adam mekadesh es atzmai ma'at malmata, mekatshi noisei harbe malmaila. It's something unique that he's given a tremendous kedusha from above, beyond the regular term of Hashras HaShekhinah that happens often. A Jew is davening, a Jew is learning. There's something called Hashras HaShekhinah. This is something beyond that. Mekatshi noisei harbe malmaila. It's a unique gift. Eloha inyanu al pi b'shakasu b'gemara reish perek vav de brachas. The explanation is based on what the Gemara says in the sixth perek, at the beginning of the sixth perek of brachas. Ahadik siv, about what the pasuk says. V'yasafta de gancha v'siroshcha v'yitzarecha v'goymer. The Gemara in Brachas Lamed Hey brings the pasuk in Kriya Shema, that you will gather your grain and your wine and your oil and I will give grass in your field for your animal, and you'll eat it, and you'll be satiated. In other words, the blessing is that there's a process of work, agricultural work, farming, which allows you to eat and enjoy and satiate yourself and your livestock, your cattle, your animals. Uksiv, there's another pasuk in Yeshaya, Perik Samach Aleph, Va'amdu Zarim V'ro Tzaynam. And strangers will stand up and shepherd their flock. That he prophesizes that the Jewish people will be able to sit and learn, and Va'amdu Zarim, strangers, Zarim, will stand and do the work. Frag the Gemara, how do you reconcile these two? The prediction of Shema and the prediction of Yeshaya. So he says, Kan bizman she Yisrael oisin ritzayna shel makom, kan k'she'ein oisin ritzayna shel makom. One is talking about a time that they fulfill the divine will, and one is when they don't fulfill the divine will. You have to do it on your own, because ein oisin ritzayna shel makom. So you got to do all the work on your own. You have to sweat. But if it's a time of oisin ritzayna shel makom, they're fulfilling the God will, well, already He'll take care of it. And you're free from the stress of this labor. For who tamua? This answer of the Gemara is very difficult to understand. How can the Gemara say that vasafta the gancha is talking about when they're not fulfilling the divine will? This is the second portion of Kriya Shema. What does it say right before? Im shamaya tishmol mitzvahs asher neichi mitzvah eschemaya. La'avas Hashem alekeichem la'avdoi b'chol levavchem b'chol nafshechem. You'll obey my mitzvahs, love Hashem, serve Him with all your heart and all your soul. And then, v'nasati mitar artzechem, I'll give you the rain of your land in the right time. V'asafta d'ganchu zereshcha v'yitzarecha, you'll harvest and gather your grain, etc., etc. That's called Ein Oisin Ritzayna Shel Makom. To listen to all my mitzvahs, love Him, serve God with all your heart and all your soul. How can the Gemara say this is Ein Oisin Ritzayna Shel Makom? And that's where you got to do the work yourself. Acha inyan de Parshas ulay niskar b'chol ma'oidchem. K'may shekasa b'Parshas Shema. V'lechein nikra adayin Ein Oisin Ritzayna Shel Makom. When we say Ein Oisin Ritzayna Shel Makom, it doesn't mean literally they're disobeying God's will. It says clearly, Shamaya Tishmal Mitzvah. The Gemara was talking about that parsha of Kriya Shema. How can you say this? It says you'll serve Him with all your heart and all your soul. We're talking something much deeper. The word B'chol Ma'oidcha is only the first parsha, not the second parsha. The first portion of Shema says V'aftas Hashem Elokecha B'chol Levavcha B'chol Nafshecha B'chol Ma'odecha. With your heart, all your soul, and all your ma'oid. We'll see what that means. In the second one, it says, La'avdai b'chol levavchem or b'chol nafshechem. The word of b'chol ma'oidchem is not here. That's what the Gemara says. The disparity, the distinction between avodas Hashem b'chol ma'odecha and not b'chol ma'odecha, that's the difference of oisin ritzayna shel makom and ein oisin ritzayna shel makom. That's what the Gemara means. But this has to be understood. How can you say that a Jew serving with his heart and with his soul, not b'chol ma'odechas, ein oisin ritzayna shel makom? Hine isa b'zoyhar. The Zohar says the less pulchana kepulchana de rechimusa, which means pulchana in Aramaic means avoida, work, service. Rechimusa means love in Aramaic. Says the Zohar less pulchana. There's no avoida kepulchana de rechimus, like the avoida of love. That trumps everything. Umideloi amar birichimusa. Move on. Heyoisa ava atzma pchinis avoida v'amal gadol hagiyela. The Zohar doesn't say leis pulchana kepulchana birichimusa. It says kepulchana dirichimusa. The difference seems subtle, but it's a difference in translation. Less pulchana kapulchana birichimusa means there's no avoida like avoida with love. In other words, serving God with a sense of love, with an affection. There's nothing like having a relationship with somebody, yeah, working with them, working for them, working with them, doing things for each other, accompanied with a feeling of love, not pressure and anxiety and stress and only fear and dominance. Less pulchana ke pulchana birichimus. Whatever avodas Hashem is, a Jew is davening, a Jew is learning, a Jew is doing a mitzvah, a Jew is doing kind acts of goodness and kindness. Less pulchana, there's no avodah ke pulchana birichimusa, like one which is accompanied by a feeling of love. The Zohar says less pulchana ke pulchana dirichimus. There's no avodah like the avodah of love. Not avodah with love, the avodah of love. In other words, the ava itself is the avodah. Not to do the avodah with a feeling of love. In other words, that the love is there while you're doing the work. The avodah is the love. Las pulchana ke pulchana dirichimusa. Like the avodah of love. Not with love. That's what he says. Mideloi amar birichimusa. Move on. Heyoisa ava atzma. Pchines avodah. Va'amal gadol agiyela. The ava itself is the avodah he's talking about. Va'amal. It's the great effort to reach. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, he teaches das to the Jewish people. Limei das. He teaches this to the Jewish people at the end of his life in Parshas Nitzavim, where Moshe says, La'avas Hashem Elokecha, ki hu chayecha. To love Hashem, your God. Why? Because He is chayecha. He is your life. Moshe is teaching them how to reach the avodah of Ahava itself. Hihu chayach. The Hainu, what does this mean? What is Moshe saying? When a person meditates. Echu oyev chaye nafshay. How he loves the life of his own soul. V'roitzim ma'oid b'kiyum chiyusay. And desires very much the existence and endurance and maintenance of his life. It should never be interrupted. This is perhaps the strongest desire in a person. The will for life and the yearning for life, which is of course seen in a moment. God forbid when a person's life is in danger or jeopardized or in question, what the person will do in order to hold on, to cling to life. So what's this kihu chayecha? We see clearly, a person has a lot of desires in life. You don't have one desire, you have a lot of things. What do you want to do today? Everybody has on their to-do list, I'm sure, right? Wie viel Sachen hast du auf der to-do list heint? After Shachas you'll think about it, huh? Was darfst du trachten jetzt? People have a lot of desires. But what's the desire that is deeper than all of the desires? The desire for life. We see that if a person's life, God forbid, is in danger, they'll usually give up everything else in order to hold on to life. People will go through sometimes enduring procedures, surgeries, therapies that are sometimes excruciating and expensive. They'll lose their money and so much more. Money mela, but so much more just in order to be able to prolong life. We know there's situations where people are there's so much pain involved that unfortunately they have a different perspective. But generally speaking, the taivas achayim, the avas achayim, is deeper than every other love. And that's what he says, that this is a natural ava. And when a person chas v'shalom is not feeling well, or even when a person is exhausted, right, and you're craving to be able to get some rest, to be able to refresh yourself, to be able to revitalize yourself, to be able to become more healthy. This a person should place to his heart. Ki hu yizbarech hinehu atzmai hachiyus shebekir boi v'chayev mamash shehu chaye ha'olamim elyonim v'tachtonim. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, remember this life that you love. What is this life? This is the divine. La'avas Hashem Elokecha ki hu chayecha. Ki hu chayecha. What is it that you love? What are you trying to cling on to? Was willst du? What do you want? You'll say, why do you want to live? So a person will say, why? I don't know. I love my family. I love this about life. I love that about life. I love that about life. And it's all true, but those are the manifestations. There's something the person loves, something about life. He can't imagine separating from it. He'll do anything. What is this chayecha that you love? Now, we don't always focus on it because life is busy and stressful, but there comes a time when a person does focus on it. There comes a time, those vulnerable moments in life when serious things are at stake, and suddenly, a person doesn't always realize what they love and how much they love it until it might be taken from them. At Shul, Yonason tells David HaMelech, "V'nifkadeta ki yipaked meishavecha." You will be remembered because your seat will be absent. As long as your seat is not absent, nobody remembers you. Nach a stick flesh. When the seat is absent, who is Yankel? Yeah. Well, Yankel is da. But when the seat is absent, you're remembered. So in a broader sense, it means, sometimes when we have something, we don't appreciate it. You take it for granted. God forbid, when it's gone, yipaked meishavecha. Person realizes the preciousness of it.
I gotta live,
We're talking a healthy person. I know there's people who want to die. But we try, even legally, even the legal system understands. Somebody is trying to jump off the George Washington Bridge, right? You call the police. Right away you call the police. The police will stop him. Why? They'll beat him up. They'll put him in prison. They'll hospitalize him. Oh, because you care for his life, really? So that's why you're going to handcuff him, put him in a car, punch him in the face, make him unconscious. Really? That's how much you respect him? But somehow it's understood. It's understood by a moral society that there is something infinitely precious about a person's life. He wants to take it. Well, he's not bothering anybody. He's not killing anybody else. He hates his life. It happened. Unfortunately, these things happen constantly. Sometimes successful.
Isn't that Yira on a grand scale? You want to protect him from himself.
Yeah, I'm just giving an example.
Saying another example. Person, your seat will be empty. Isn't that a fear that one's seat will be empty at some point? It's true of every person.
Yeah. I'm just using that pasuk as a metaphor.
Is that really love or is that fear? A person fears to lose something. And when he doesn't have it, it's gone. He's beyond it.
But I think behind that fear, what he's saying, behind that fear is a love. It's grounded in a love. That the love to life is deeper than any other love and is probably behind every other love. It's deeper than every other, and it's behind every other love is a manifestation of that love. The question is how you define life. How you define life. You know the old anecdote, right? The communists come banging on, yes, in the middle of the night, a Jew living in, Moscow in the real communist regime. And they say, there's a real Russian Jew, does Jacob Gurevich live here? He says, absolutely not, doesn't live here. And they say, what's your name? He says, Jacob Gurevich. So he says, why do you say he's not living here? He says, you call this living? Das ist nicht gelebt, The question is, how do I define life, right? But every I would say, every or most cravings that we have are a manifestation of that. Sometimes people make a mistake because what they're craving are not things that are going to promote life. They're going to promote the opposite of life. Okay, but that's a whole other issue. That's not the discussion here. But David. Yonason tells David just beautiful words. Tomorrow, don't come to the meal of my father. Shul would make a Rish Chodesh meal. You'll be remembered because your seat will be vacant. You'll be remembered because your seat will be absent. Yeah. And indeed, Shaul said, where's David? First day not. Second day, where's David? But it's not just the words. You won't be there. He's going to ask where you are. And then we'll get into a conversation about you. That's the literal pshat in the story. It's in Shmuel. But I'm just saying on a broader level, what it means is that sometimes it takes absence to remember. We take people for granted. We all know when people are, sometimes your own father you take for granted, right? Your own mother you take for granted. Your siblings you take for granted. Whatever you take, it's there, it's part of life. And then Chalila comes the day when you have to say goodbye. You don't take it for granted anymore. And it takes vision to be able not to take things for granted when they're there. What do I have to wait till it's absent? And then you wish, how many regrets do people have in life? If only I would have realized, that this time doesn't last forever. If only I would have realized. Okay, so realize it and do what you got to do now. How many regrets do people have for not having certain conversations with their parents before the time comes? Sharing certain things. It's a painful reality. It's a very painful reality. These are things you hear from people. There are tremendous things you hear from people sometimes at moments of their life. They're very sober and they're very lucid and they look at things differently. And you hear certain perspectives that you wouldn't hear, when somebody's on top of the world and just takes everything for granted and thinks they're invincible and whatever they want, they have. That's when sometimes the Ava comes out. But the Ava is always there. The question is how much I'm aware of it. I once read an interesting paper. I didn't see follow-up research, so I can't verify it. I just saw an article, I think, somewhere, or heard it from somebody, that they saw an very interesting statistic. People who are have addictions, recovery is not easy. As some of you know, recovery is very, very difficult. An interesting thing, when they're diagnosed with a terminal illness, very often the addiction ceases. In other circumstances, recovery is so difficult. But with terminal illness, there's a disproportionate amount who sober up from their addiction. And it's a very powerful idea because basically, when they realize that they're about to chas v'shalom forfeit their life, a deeper self emerges.
That happened in the bottom.
Similar to hitting rock bottom is a form of death, you're saying. It's a form of death. Now, this Ava we're not always aware of, and I'll prove it to you. Ask any person in this room, or watching, or any person, you can go over to them and ask them, from everything in life, you want to make money, and you want to have a beautiful home, and you want to be able to pay your bills, and you want your family to be successful, and you want this, and you want that, and you want to finish Bavli and your Yerushalmi, etc., and all the good things you want. Yeah. From all the things, what is the most important thing to you? And if a person will think, right, you can have everything, but you're going to die tomorrow. Most important thing is I want to live. Nothing else can happen without that context. I want to live. And that runs deeper than anything else. We want to be comfortable, of course. But if it's a choice between discomfort and life, in other words, I can be comfortable and not have life, and be uncomfortable and have life. Well, look at people in hospitals. Look at people undergoing chemotherapy. And people going through surgeries and procedures, some of them excruciatingly painful. I want to live.
This is really a good question. You have to hear from me, but morbidity, what is the quality of life?
Right. 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 So at least so often with most people, they're going to say, this is the deepest thing. The deepest desire, the deepest love, more than any love. I mean, you can ask yourself the question, and I think this will be the answer. Now ask yourself another question. How much time during the day do you spend fulfilling this ambition? Appreciating it and promoting it and pursuing it. And you also know the answer to that, right? So isn't that a funny thing? It's a funny thing.
You see sometimes people who have been terrible experience and cherish life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a need of gratitude.
Yeah. And I think the answer is something could be so deep in you, but you're not aware of it. It's really there, but you're not aware of it. You're not conscious of it. You don't focus on it. If you would, your whole behavior would be different. It's not, you don't have to create it. It's not that you're a liar. It's not that you're a liar, you're not real, you're a hypocrite, you're fake, you don't really want, of course you want to live. When push comes to shove, you'll sacrifice everything. But now I'm just not aware. I'm not aware of who I am. Because we live with a lot of cover-ups, a lot of cover-ups. So now ask a person, from your 24 hours, how much time during the day do you spend promoting, prolonging, helping, advancing this which you love more than anything else? And sometimes you'll see 0, the exact opposite.
When you get older and feel this and that.
Okay. Okay. Right.
In terms of health.
Okay.
When you eat.
How would you know? How would a spring chicken like you know? I just want to know. You're a smart teenager, huh? You're a smart teenager. Okay. Free.
George Burns, that he said one time that someone came up to him with a gun, right? And he said, "Give me your money or give me your life." And he said, "Wait a minute, let me think about it."
Give me your money or give me your life, huh? Yeah. There's an old Jewish joke that during the First World War, so the Russians were fighting the Germans. So at some point, the Russian general tells his platoon, the commander of the platoon, he says, listen, he says, we got no backup. We got very poor ammunition. There's a whole platoon of Germans heading this way. It's basically man to man. That's it, you know? It's basically one man to another man. So this Jew says, can you show me my man? I'd like to make a deal with him. You know? Maybe we can work something out. You know? Show me my man. And the truth is that Judaism focused very much on this. And even in very practical terms. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Re'ena sati lefanecha es hachayim, ves hatoy, ves hamoves, ves hara, ubacharta b'chayim. You should choose life. I've shown you there's life, there's death, there's good and bad. Choose life. So when it says you need Moshe to tell you to choose life, an animal knows to choose life. A mosquito knows to choose life. Every rodent and reptile knows to choose life. So there's different levels of interpretations, but one of them, it was a collective commandment to the Jewish people that during history, it's easy sometimes for a culture or a religion or a people to choose death. We have cousins who glorify death, who glorify dying as a martyr, dying as a suicide bomber. Mothers whose nachas is if their children could kill themselves to destroy the enemy. The Jewish people, even in the worst situations, a day after Auschwitz, it was hard for some Jews to kill a Nazi. It was hard for them, even if they had the opportunity. The focus was ubacharta b'chayim. Don't give in to a culture that glorifies death. You should always choose life. You know, they say that there were 3 people in Starbucks, a rabbi and a priest and a minister talking about their funerals. So the priest says, I would like to hear somebody say at my funeral, you know, he was a true servant of the Lord. And the minister says, I would like to hear somebody eulogize me and say he was a real friend. You could rely on him. And they say, Rabbi, what would you like to hear at your funeral? He says, I would like to hear somebody say, you know, I think he's moving. It's all based on the same idea, that we cherish life. And the truth is, it's as we see, it's innately human. And it's not even human. It's actually every existence will do anything to preserve its life. Tremendous things. Tremendous things. Am I always aware of it? I'm not always aware of it, because if I would always be aware of it, I would act that way. And sometimes I act exact opposite. But it doesn't take away from the fact that if my true self is revealed and I'm forced to face it because I can't cover it up anymore, you see this Ava. So the Baal HaTanya is now teaching something else. He says, you say, how do you love God? You love God. Because what is it that you're loving? You're loving this elusive thing called life. So what does it mean? That I could sit on my couch and eat ice cream? Yeah, I guess so. But is that what it is? And if I can't sit on my couch and I can't have ice cream? Yeah. The people who were years prisoners of war, people who languished for years in gulags, they did anything to live. They didn't have the comforts that we associate with life. Yeah, life is manifested in the fact that I can eat and I can drink and I can enjoy people and I can go Sunday here and Monday there and Tuesday there. But that's not the nekuda. That's the manifestation, what we do. If you identify the avazim, what is it that you're looking for? What is it? You like your lungs? You like your lungs? You like your blood system? You like the 9 systems of the biological organism? You appreciate your digestive system. You don't want it to disintegrate. Your skeletal system. What is it? Yeah, of course, it's all that. But what is the nekuda? What is the point? What are you loving exactly? So we usually don't go there. So he says, you love God. Every Jew already, you have Avos Hashem. You have Avos Hashem. You're in love with God. But the way you translate God may be traumatic. What does God mean for you? He says, Ki hu chayecha. Stop with this trauma. The real definition of Hashem is life. That is what it is. What is your life? What is this life? What is this breath? What are these electrical currents that vivify and vitalize our body? What are these 100 billion neurons firing away every nanosecond? You know there's 400 billion neurons firing away? Yeah, as you're smiling. Why do you think you're smiling? Because they're busy firing away. And 40 trillion cells operating. What is this life that gives them all that? What is it? Ki hu chayecha. That's divine life. It's divine energy. It's spiritual divine energy. You already love God.
How can you limit life just to physical?
Also physical life. Also physical life. There's another life. But that life doesn't cease. The relationship with the body ceases. Is there life after death? Life doesn't die. Of course, there's no life after death. There's no death in life. Life lives. How can life die? The body dies. Life doesn't die. Very important idea. People find it very mystical. But I'll give you a very practical example. You plug in your refrigerator. You ever do that? Huh? You plug in your refrigerator, right? The maid does it. You plug in the refrigerator. You plug in the laptop, right? You plug in the phone. What happens? You plug in the vacuum cleaner. They used to say the tape recorder, but I know that's Olav Shalom already. Whatever it is that you plug in, what happens now? My refrigerator is functioning. The wire draws the power of electricity through the wire, giving the refrigerator the energy, the ability to be able to function as a refrigerator and cool the food, or keep the food cool, keep the food frozen, etc. There's the power of electricity, and the power of electricity. Nobody ever saw electricity, you know that. No scientist in the world has seen electricity, but we certainly all see the effects of electricity, the symptoms of electricity, the ramifications. That's why nobody doubts electricity. We don't doubt electricity, not because we see it, we can't see it, but because we see its impact. We see its impact constantly. We have an air conditioner here plugged in, so it's a little cooler. What happens now when I pull out the plug? What happens to the electricity? Somebody will say, oh, the electricity is dead, the electricity is destroyed. No. What happens? It retreats back to its source. All the plug does is it channels the electricity into this particular vehicle, into this particular item, whether it's a refrigerator or an AC or a computer. When I pull out the plug, the electricity doesn't die. It retreats back to its source. Life doesn't die. Life doesn't die. So what is death? What does death really mean? Death really means that the life reverts, so to speak, back to the source of electricity. So yes, you look at the refrigerator, there's nothing happening in the refrigerator. It's lifeless. But the life didn't die, the electricity didn't die. So what does life mean? What does birth mean? Birth means that the electricity is being channeled in this vehicle, through this vehicle. But that doesn't stop, it doesn't cease at any point. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells a Jew, I want you to understand, ki hu chayecha. What is this life that you cherish? What is it? Huh? You always have to be plugged in, yeah? You have to be plugged in. So why is it that I want to be plugged in so much? I'm looking for this electricity. I want this life. What is it that I love? This is Avos Hashem. This is Avos Hashem. I know some people ask themselves, do I love God? Am I capable? Of course you love. You love God every moment. You say, I don't feel it. Sometimes people don't even feel that they love their life. Ask them, what are you doing right now? But it's the deepest love in the world. You'll give everything up for it. And that's everything, almost everything up for it. Almost everything. If you have to be left with one undershirt, right? A person could have everything and die and be left with one undershirt. Yeah? They'll choose it. Most people will choose it as
You have to love Hashem. You're loving Hashem for all
it's not you have, you do. You have to become aware, ki hu chayecha. That is life. We hear the word God, we right away associate it some guy in heaven up there who issues forth commandments and warns about punishments and rewards. We have to change that paradigm. Al kol neshama tahal Likkutei says the Medrash al kol neshima neshima. The word neshama comes from the word neshima. Every breath of life.
Why do you say reversion? Because doesn't the
I say what?
Why do you say reversion? Doesn't the goof just drop away like a garment, and the essential connection is never lost? So why is it a reversion?
No, I'm just giving a metaphor of the electrical currents.
So the metaphor is a metaphor, but it's not. In other words,
Right, yeah.
I'm always connected with that.
Right. So of course there's afterlife. It's not afterlife. Life continues. It's not even afterlife. That's what the Gemara means. Yaakov Avinu loy meis, right? Maseches Tainis Dafei. Yaakov didn't die. What do you mean he didn't die? If somebody's always tuned into the electricity, so then there's no experience of Misa like we usually speak about. Because it's not afterlife. Life continues. Not in this garment. It's like changing my... Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin says, you know, I mean Yaakov Avinu loy meis. They buried him. The Gemara says they eulogized him. They buried him. They embalmed him. So he says, you know, a person doesn't come to my manager and says, by the way, I put on a new shirt today. Yeah, I happened to put on a new shirt today. My shirt yesterday got dirty from supper. But I say, you know, I went through this crazy transformation this morning. I say, what do you do? I put on a new shirt. It's important to put on a new shirt. You should wear clothes that are not filthy, but you don't compare. You don't look at it as a transformation, as a dramatic moment in your life. Maybe some people do. I guess it depends what type of shirt it is. So he says, Yaakov Avinu loy meis. He didn't see it as a transformation in him. When you're in touch with that electricity, it continues. Yesterday it was in this garment. Today it's in this garment. Transformation would mean I got transformed, not my suit. You transformed your suit is not transformation. You changed the suit. So for him, the physical outlet was the suit. It was the garment.
You know, the old story about the cardiac Jew and all the gloves, but it doesn't do anything. So it seems paradoxical here. You're speaking about an intrinsic love for your life, which is a love of Hashem. And at the same time, you're not aware of it. You're not doing anything.
Well, I'm saying that we see this even biologically, this contradiction. I'm telling you, ask every person. Go around Shul. What's the most important thing to you? And they'll say, my life. And how much time a day do you spend on that? And you know the answer, right? Why? Because my priorities don't mean anything. My priorities are there in a very deep place, but I'm not in touch with them consciously.
Your priorities enable your highest value.
Yeah, but I may not be tuned in to what that ultimate priority is. That's it.
They're predicates for my highest value. Therefore, they have a God in there, right?
It's always there, but that link is often an awareness, yeah. An awareness, yeah. An awareness and appreciation for it, not taking it for granted, realizing how vulnerable it is.
How vulnerable life is, but my essential love.
Yeah, exactly.
The best.
Yeah, you leave it happen. Sometimes you'll ask a parent, what's the most important thing to you? You'll say his children. Say, how much time do you spend with your child? What's more important, your job or your child? What's the question, my job? Really? How much time do you spend with your child? How much time do you spend in the office? 16 hours a day. With our child, once a week, Shabbos, I fall asleep at the table. He wasn't lying. I don't think he was lying. It's true. Of course he would throw away his business in a second if chas v'shalom, the life of his child was at stake. But in day-to-day life, that deepest, most essential passion, that is real, it's real. It's camouflaged, it's eclipsed. Daily living, yeah. I don't understand. If you would throw away your business in a second to save your child's life, yeah? So why is it whenever he asks you, Tati, can we go? I'm busy. What do you mean you're busy? Didn't you say he comes first? The answer is, I got to make money to support him. Somebody got to pay the bills, right? Now one day I'll make so much money, I'll be able to retire, and then we'll be able to spend 24 hours a day together. Problem is, by then he won't know your name anymore. You understand my point? I don't think we're not lying to ourselves. We're not trying to be hypocritical. We mean it. V'haraya, when push comes to shove, he will demonstrate that he means it. I was speaking at a Pidyon Aben. So at a Pidyon Aben, there's a very interesting nusach. You ever saw the nusach Pidyon Aben? Right? The Kohen asks you, but my boy is tfei. What do you want more? Your child or the 5 slayim of silver, which is approximately $45? It's a real question. And then you tell the Kohen, I want my child more than the $50. Wow, you're such a good guy. You won't sell your kid for $50. Not bad. 200 maybe. Right? So I was speaking at a Pidyon and I said, what's this nusach? So the Kohen is not talking about now. Kohen is talking about in 8 years from now. In 8 years from now, you're going to have to choose. But my boy is tvei. What do you want more? You want your money or you want your child? That's going to be a question. In other words, will you allow your obsession with money, for good reasons, to eclipse the relationship with your child? Because everybody is busy and stressed, let's face it. Most of us are not born with a Yerusha of $20 million, right? Or win the lottery. People are busy and stressed and over for their children. If you just have to live on your own, you would just, you could survive on $8 a day and eat a tuna sandwich with Shiner soups. But there's tuition, there's mortgage, there's campus coming, etc. So the father is authentic. The father is authentic. But in day-to-day life, right now, I have to be in the office. Right now, I have an email. Right now, I have a text. Right now, I have an appointment. Right now, I have a meeting. Right now, I got to sell a building, buy a building. I have an appointment, whatever it is. Everybody in their own life. So that essential inner connection just is not on the surface. It's behind. It's in the background, and sometimes it's covered up by many layers. And the question is, how many layers? Lucky is the person who's always in touch with their deepest priorities, which for many of us only comes out in moments when that priority is in danger. That's what often happens. So let's see the words. So he says, Hu yisbarich, hu atzmai hachiyus shebekir boi v'chayav mamash. It's not, we have to, the word God is not It's not a Jewish word. I know that sounds strange. Right? The word God is right away some being out there. So he says, you have to touch it differently. Hu yizbarach, hu atzmai hachiyus shebekirba. This chayis in you, this life in you, that is Hashem. V'chayev mamish, shehu chayei ha'olamim el yainam v'tachtayna. The life of everything, the higher and the lower, the spiritual and the physical, the highest world, the lowest world, that is Elikus, that is divine. La'avas Hashem alakecha ki hu chayecha. That is your chiyus. Okay, we'll stop here.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.